All right, welcome to Line by Line Bible Studies. We're not doing strictly a Bible study today, but if you haven't already seen my video I produced, or whatever, I produced with my son. If you haven't seen that video, you might look at that. But the point is, we're gonna do a little analysis of it right now. I also want to talk about how it was made, why it was made, why it's important to me. So, last week on Wednesday, and I just confirmed the dates. I uploaded kind of a rant, as they might call it, about the lockdowns, or the stay-at-home orders, or I don't know what else you'd call it, cease living orders that were put out in certain states, including my own. Interestingly, my state's stay-at-home order began on March the 21st, which was a significant date for me because it also happens to be the 15-year anniversary of the day I got the Holy Spirit. And I didn't even notice it at the time. I just remember on the 20th, when the order was issued, before it went into effect, being out and the streets being virtually deserted, even in this small rural town, I should say. This town in which a lot of this is filmed on location is Freeport, and it is 26,000. So it's a small city. So it's not exactly a small town, such as like the village of Shannon, which is a few miles south. Not south. Well, southwest of me. All right. Well, I remember it being cleared. Okay, just empty. I remember the feeling of, like, technically speaking, according to their judgment, I wasn't out for essential reasons. But according to my judgment, I was. And they aren't close enough to my life to judge what is essential and non-essential for me to live. It's one of the most important assertions I would make. Anyways, so on the 20th of May, so we're just a day short of 2 months after the original decree, the order from on high. So, exactly 4 weeks into it, is when I made that rant called, what did I call it? Did I call it I Bear the Bloodstained Bible or something like that? Something like that. I don't remember the exact word. Anyways, I made that rant. I just was responding to someone who says, nobody ever talks about the suicides. Well, they kind of do, but do they really think about suicides? And so I wrote that rant. And then at night I couldn't sleep. So I got up in the middle of the night and I recorded it, and I put it up instead of a Bible study. Then I went to bed that morning at 7 a.m. That's the 20th of May. As I lay in bed, I suddenly had the beginning line of this song come into my head. I was laying there and my head just had the first line of the song about long ago, when I was just a lad, my grandmother said to me, or showed to me, something like that. The Bloodstained Bible. And I got up, and I remember it felt so powerful in my mind, the melody. I heard it for a second. I heard almost like the whole song. I heard the kind of song it was going to be in the first line. And oftentimes when I'm getting creative with music, there's like a first thread I need to grab and pull, and the whole thing will unravel. It's like a knot of an idea that has been all clustered into a fine point. And then I pull on it and I see all the extent of it. So I got up and I went out into my barn, into my little quiet little room, my studio out there. And I began to write the song. And I sat there for about 4 hours and I just wrote the song. For the most part, what it is now. There were a few minor changes afterwards. But I wrote it. I started practicing it immediately. And I pretty much knew immediately I was going to do a video for it. And I could see it was going to land on Memorial Day. I'm not sure exactly when all that became apparent to me, but within the next day or so. Obviously, because we had to act fast, because like I said, this was last Wednesday. I wrote the song last Wednesday, and then released it on Memorial Day early in the morning. And those are 2 nights where I did not sleep. In fact, there was other nights where I barely slept. And I felt like I lived more days that week than were in that week. I mean, like Wednesday through Monday felt like 7 or 8 days. It was only like 5. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to talk about different parts of it. Some of the symbolic meaning I see in it. A lot of it, is funny because it's not, is it intentional? Well, yeah. But it's interesting to me because like I said, I didn't really make the video. I participated in making it. But my son put it together for me because I didn't have time. And I really liked the way it came out. And it spoke to me on a certain level that I thought was good because it's how I wanted it to have a voice and speak on an issue that's very important. And that, of course, is, at the very base of this is the rights of free men. And as free men, we have certain rights and responsibilities. But it seems that in this time, those rights have been taken away from us because I think those in charge believe that we cannot be trusted to be responsible. And at that point, I have to ask, why do we even bother with why do we even value democracy anymore? If the people cannot be trusted to do the right thing, like generally speaking, people are always going to do the wrong thing. It's like with a lot of things, the law restricts the righteous more than it does the wicked. You know what I mean? The wicked are not often restrained by the law. And maybe that's why I wasn't entirely restrained by the lockdown. I don't know. But I don't think so. I think it's because I knew, and the thing is, I can either choose to save my family or obey the governor's orders. And the governor puts me in that position. What shall you do? Save your family or obey me? And I think there can only really be one answer to that. Okay. That's not to say you don't take an intelligent approach to things. Now let's look at the... here we have the opening. That's in my office. It's in this room right here. And directly behind me is where you can see this little cabinet here. And there's the Bloodstained Bible. That is actually something... The whole premise of this is 100% true. I first saw that when I was a young man. My grandmother, again, I'm getting ahead of it, but I like the way you use the image here of just introducing the idea of the thing before we've said anything. But I like that it's all silent. It's just like, here is this thing. Here it is. And of course, the canteen was an incidental inclusion because I needed more words. When I wrote the song, I knew the canteen was there. There actually is also his rifle, but I don't possess the rifle. That's in the possession of my sister. So I only have the canteen and the Bible. And I like that. I didn't want to sing a song about guns, even though guns appear in the video, or a gun, but it's really just a prop. It's not the emotional connection. The emotional connection is with this and his bloodshed on the book, the Bible, which is also a book about bloodshed, which is also a book that many people have blamed for war. Because truly, they say men go to war over religion, and they do. They do. They go over to war over their convictions, the things that are most important to them, and of course, religion is right at the top. You could call it religion, you could call it philosophy. Sometimes when people's thoughts diverge so strongly, and in such opposing directions, they do go to war with one another over the possession of or because the intellectual landscape of men, their thought processes, there are different ideas vying for control. This is kind of cultural, right? It's one of the things that's like, I've talked about this in my Bible studies many times, that as Christians, we sort of lost the culture war beginning in the 90s because, and it began even sooner, but it was already being, we knew, in the 90s, we knew it was happening, right? And we fought it on a legislative, governmental basis. Christians organized to influence governments, senators, congressmen, not understanding that this is not where these things are fought out. They're fought out in the hearts and minds of people, and they can only be spread through people accepting certain important ideas, bedrock ideas that are foundational to our very existence as a country. Let's play a little more. Okay, now the music starts. Here we are driving down Route 26. Isn't it beautiful? And this is it was downtown Freeport, and we go back to the scene many times. This is the statue of Lincoln and Douglas in a place called Debate Square. And we have the Civil War Memorial downtown. That's out in front of my house. And the family clapping and stuff. That was one of the last ideas we had for this. I really enjoyed it because I thought it needed something hopeful and powerful. And to me, this, of course, also, if you count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, there's 12 people here, and they are not all members of the same household. It includes my father, who's old, but he's had contact with all of us. We don't live in the same house, but we might as well. My children go to and from, and they stay with their papa, and they have throughout the pandemic gone over to his place, because that's the only place they've gone. In fact, the only person who really goes to the stores at all is me. See, I have my own plan for how to deal with the pandemic. It does not require the governor to intervene and tell me how to live my life. You know what I mean? I know how to keep my elderly father safe as best I can. And whether or not we associate with each other, whether or not I go to my intimate family member's home, is none of their business. And the astonishing thing is that we as a country allowed them to, or at least some of the states, in our fear, in the moment of where we didn't know how bad it would be. We sort of accepted them taking a big chunk, we didn't question it, of our freedom, or of them just taking our freedom and saying, we order you to do things and so on and so forth, as though we were their property. They just said so. We allowed them to do that. And for the thought that it might have been very dangerous, we were expecting a much worse pandemic than we got. Even so, even if it was as bad as they thought, that does not justify what they've done. Because it was not done with the consent of the governed. And one of the things I want to say going into this, as we look at the different parts about this, about lockdowns and such, in my state of Illinois, they say that, that the governor's plan enjoys 70% approval. And in my rant, I said, I think if people understood what the plan was, they wouldn't approve. But because of the propaganda of the media, it's got high approval. But from my perspective, if 70% of the people vote to enslave 30% of the people, that's not a lawful thing. 70% of the people cannot just vote democratically to enslave 100% of the people, or 30% of the people, or any percent of the people. There are certain fundamental rights of men which no democratic power has the right to take away. There may be some very, I understand, like, for military services, conscription, and all that. And I'm not, as everyone would know of me, I'm not a hawkish individual. I'm exceedingly anti-war. You know what I mean? But that does not say I don't believe in fighting and that there are things worth fighting for. And certainly, I'm going to talk more about like why the responsibilities are important for Christians even now. Even if, because a lot of Christians may feel, hey, I was part of a church that they were pacifists, essentially. They would not participate. They were conscientious objectors. They would not participate in war. And I certainly feel that is so. When the government sends us off on these well-intentioned, but poorly defined, poorly planned, poorly thought out, and often doing more harm than good adventures into other countries, where we project our power, we send our young men over into foreign lands to kill their young men and to occupy their land. It's like, part of the reason why they attack us is because we are in their places. If like China was running around in my backyard, I might have thoughts about how can we send a message to China, But anyways, let's go look at another image. Now, this is the first image of downtown Freeport here. You see a barber shop. They had his thing running, but the barber shop is indeed closed. I don't use a barber myself. My wife has always cut my hair. And I think it's interesting that often they talk about hair salons, and it seems like such a small thing, right? Like, who needs their hair cut? You know what? But there's somebody who needs to cut hair, because that's what they do for a living. For them, that's an essential task. And maybe they do well and they make their way through the pandemic fine, but there's a certain level on which it is fundamentally wrong to tell a person that they cannot be trusted to conduct their lawful activity, the lawful activity that they normally participate in order to earn a living, which they were brought up believing they could do, and that would be something that they could rely on to sustain their lives, at least to some degree, if they were competent and worked hard at it. And so, there was the barber shop was empty, not running. Now, I don't use it, but it's like, to me, like I said, my work, most of it I do remotely. But there are times when I need to collaborate with my brother. That was the first day of the lockdown. I was collaborating with him. You know why? Because when the lockdown came down, when the clients, even in other countries where they have another responses, told me, we don't have any more work right now. Things are going to be suspended for a while. So like half of my business just evaporates in one day. And now they're telling me, now the other project, which is essentially half at the other half or whatever, there's other projects. If I don't collaborate with him, that's going to be a problem. And so I should just throw that away too and fall on my sword. I might as well just march myself into a gas chamber. You know what I'm saying? They're asking people to march themselves into gas chambers. Just close down your business. Just close down your livelihood. Stop living. Just stay in place. Now the damage done to people, I can only imagine. I mean, in such a short time, it's been 2 months, but that's a lot of time. It's a lot of time. And falling 2 months behind on things, some people are well off their retirement and all that. But you got to understand there's a trickle-down economic effect. And it can affect things way down the line. I don't know. I don't want to argue from the pragmatic perspective of the negative effects that these economic decisions have down the line. Meaning, there have been people who project that because of these draconian measures they've taken, and forcing people to stay home and stop their non-essential work, they've ordered them to stop. Like, who knows what the ramifications are going to be, especially in the poorest countries, where people are the most vulnerable. Like, that's not known. If this results in a worldwide depression? I don't know. But if it does, what will that mean for people in countries where they live on a few dollars a day? Or less. Often very less. What effect will that have on him? The disruption of the food chain, supply lines. In our country, barely a blip. It's like, well, there's less meat on in the supermarket. But there's still plenty of chicken and other stuff, and they'll get it up and running again soon. What is that? They dumped milk. They plowed lettuce under. The amount of food people eat is not entirely fixed, but I'm assuming it's a fairly constant thing in the planet. When a whole bunch of food just gets wasted and not eaten, that supply has to be made up somehow, or missed out, or it will be perhaps missed somewhere. I don't know. I don't know all the logistics of it. Like I said, to me, it's not a pragmatic argument of like, is this negative economically? I thought about that. That was one of the things I said. This is a net negative, but it's more than that. It's about the rights of a free person. I've talked about slavery and as in the biblical perspective, men they sell themselves into slavery. They sell parts of their family into slavery. The thing is, imagine we have been given, well, let's look at another image here. Let's see what's next. Stay safe, healthy. Thank you for your love and support. I can't wait to see you all again. In the meantime, blah, blah, blah. There's a movie theater. That's also closed. But they put up this thing up there. Our nation owes a debt to its fallen heroes that we can never repay. When it says that, I almost have like a multiple meaning to it. I mean, there's so many meanings to it. And of course, this song is about a fallen hero. About not exactly my ancestor. Like I said, I'll say in the song, this person I'm not a direct descendant of them. I'm a direct descendant of his sister. Because he didn't live long enough to have children. And, when I think about all the war sacrifices made, the most fundamental thing, what people say when they talk about our children going off to war, they don't say to preserve economic order. They don't say to ensure we have energy supplies. They say they will fight for freedom. Right? What the heck is freedom? Freedom is the right for a man to govern himself and to also have a hand in the governing of his country. I've seen it expressed many times. People, it's kind of like Christianity. We had the priesthood of all believers. The same Reformation mentality was put into the founding of this country, where instead of every man a priest, it is every man a king. Meaning, I am Lord of my life, and I have a right to my life and to leading it the way I see fit. And I also have a responsibility as a free man in this society to contribute to the good government of this society and to the republic, which my forefathers built, which was built and designed to safeguard the liberties which we've been granted. They fought for certain liberties, and the republic was constructed to protect those liberties and to be a system of government by which would perpetuate those liberties. And to those who sacrificed their life to make me a king, essentially, I didn't ask for any of this, to make me a part of a self-governing people. To them, I owe them a debt to one, can never repay. Well, if I was going to repay it, how would I start? And just give my life to? Is that what they wanted? Just everyone to die? What did the heroes want? I don't know. But I can say this, that in my mind, if I was going to start to try it, it's so easy and pithy to say stuff like this. We can never repay the debt, blah, 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 blah. I acknowledge how big a deal it is, and I'm not making fun of the person who actually wrote it, but it's a cliche. It's a cliche. We can never repay the debt. Okay, well, let's try. If we had to repay the debt, how would we start? Right? And I think one of the most fundamental things we can do is live up to the ideals for which they fought. If they fought for freedom, then we have a duty, an obligation even, to live up to that to continue, one, to preserve what they fought for. You think about it, they fought and died for freedom. And then in the face of the fearful pandemic, we just, as a society, maybe not all of us, but essentially we just rolled over and let them do whatever they wanted to us. We just let it happen. We let them say, you stay at home. You're not important enough to go out and work. Right now, we have an emergency. And some of you just aren't important enough to earn a living anymore. So just sit tight. And essentially, it's like almost like what's essential for their life, for our leaders. They're supposed to be leaders, but I think they think of themselves more as rulers. They're in charge. I like the word in charge, meaning we have charged them. We've given them some thing to do. They occupy positions, governors, senators, congressmen, but they're our servants. We are the government. At the end of it all, it is we the people. The republic is constructed around to protect our rights. That's why a lot of things they did are, in my mind, not legal. They're not explicitly illegal, but they're so illegal on a fundamental level, so as that the law was never even written down, because it is in the face of what our republic was founded on and what they fought for to begin with. So if I was going to repay the debt to those who fell, it would be to take upon myself willingly the burden they have given me, which is also a blessing, but it cannot be just taken up lightly. Oh yeah, we have freedom. It's like they say all kinds of things like periodically, the tree of freedom has to be watered with the blood of heroes or whatever. It's like, I hear people say stuff like this. It's like, really? Well, that's pretty brutal, dark, and if true, I don't know that we are even capable of preserving it any longer. And so I speak out to preserve it. I made the video because I want to inspire people in that direction. But like I said, on some level, like I don't care if 80% of the people vote to enslave us. The 20% that disagree have right on their side. Right and wrong do not come down to a vote. The rights of men do not come down to a vote. You don't get to vote on whether I am allowed to live. Doing lawful activity. Every man bears a responsibility in themselves of keeping themselves and their family members safe. They had plagues and stuff in the Revolutionary War times, and they would be careful, cover their faces or whatever if necessary. When smallpox and stuff like that, there were outbreaks. People tried it, but they never had to give orders from the government. In fact, that would, for me, if they had merely asked, if they had merely appealed to my public spirit, I would have found it impossible not to go along. I would have said, hey, we need to, people need to be able to continue to go about their daily lives in the midst of this pandemic. So please, everyone, in the public spirit, in the America's spirit, wear a mask and by all means help people, go about their business. We will talk about masks. Well, but instead I'm left with this feeling now that like literally I can't wear one anymore. Now I can't wear one. I just come to a point where I'm like, no, now it's like the ordering me to do so is so grievous because it came along with all these other grievous things. You know what I mean? Because it was packaged, wear a mask, do this, do that, do this, do that. A lot of people can't see me operate my business. I'm not trying to do so in secret. a lot of people can't see me doing a lot of things, you know what I mean, that like living my life the way I think I should. Like they can't see, like nobody noticed. I had my father over. Oh boy. Right? But I've been ordered. Thou shalt not see your father. Thou shalt not see your brother. Thou shalt not go into their house. Thou shalt not bring your children to them. Thou shalt not bring them to your children. Thou shalt not go abroad having thy face uncovered. But thou shalt anyways cover thy face. Covered in shame is what it ought to be. Yeah, I would, like I said, I understand like the whole idea. Like if you're sick and you're sneezing and stuff, or even if you're not, like if you think you might be contagious, even if you don't think, if you are contagious, if you've just got an infection, and you don't even realize it, a mask over the face can prevent water droplets from being ejected into the air. Potentially stop it. I mean, it makes sense. I understand some level of covering your mouth makes sense. I'm not questioning that, not even a little. But to me, the risks of that are entailed in not wearing a mask, the risk to me and to the people around me, are not as great as the risk to me and the people around me if we allow this breach of our liberty to go unchallenged. You know what I mean? Our liberty has been breached, and I cannot participate in the orders which brought that breach about. As much as for the sake, let me tell you something. I've been wearing a mask and stuff when I go out in public. You know? Not in public, not outside, obviously. I don't wear it outside, but when I go to Walmart, they stop you at the door and ask you to put one on. It's like, now I feel like, I think starting today, I'm obligated. I cannot do this. That's what I'm going to say. I have a sort of magical passphrase, which I think will just allow me to get in, because it worked for my wife. Basically, it's okay. I can't wear a mask. I don't have to explain why or nothing. And I'm just going to walk in. It's okay. It's okay. I can't. And if they want to make a big deal about it, then make a big deal about it. I don't think anyone's going to make a big deal about it. I say, it's okay. Smile. And I can't. I can't wear a mask. And if they were to press me, I'd be like, it violates my religion. Because that's what it is my current religious conviction that I ought not wear a mask in public anymore. And I'm going to get into explaining why exactly that is. But I want to go through some more of the symbolism in this video. So there's a movie theater closed, and they put this up there, and I thought it was interesting. It's not, there's no like actual movies playing. Not that it's a big deal, but it's like, hey, there's again a movie theater operator. Not essential. Culture is not essential. Art is not essential. In fact, that's the Civil War Memorial, downtown Freeport. I'm right outside the courthouse, actually, and it's very beautiful there. They have a beautiful monument to the fallen heroes of the Civil War. Yes, the scaffolding in my barn. That was one of the funny ideas I had. I was like, let's do one on the scaffolding up in the barn. So, just because it's a music video. Out the gravel road. Now this is just such a beautiful, and this is so symbolic here. It was a furniture store, and everything inside was getting packed up, and not essential furniture store, not essential to you, but it was somebody's livelihood, and they hung this American flag in the doorway. Inside, and it's behind the glass. It's like America is closed. This is what this is saying to me. It's like America is closed. Not open for business. But there's something just so very sad looking in there. I could see everything being put away, going out of business. And, because it's just, a lot of these small businesses are hanging on by a thread. And our billionaire governor doesn't understand how important these little things are to the little people and how much their lives depend on it. And he just runs his his dirty feet, let's say, over their lives, tramples them down, does without a thought, and just for safety. Like he violated their freedom and their fundamental rights to think about it. Among these are the rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The pursuit of happiness is business. It means to pursue your life, to earn a living, to find whatever brings you contentment. These are the fundamental things that are inalienable. That means men ought not be alienated from these rights. You know what I mean? Not without a really good reason. And I'll tell you what, a pandemic does not measure up. It's like this furniture store. How many customers do you suppose they had on a daily basis? Do you suppose that showroom was packed with people on a daily basis, that it had to freaking close down? It had to close down because there was just people trampling in and out, disease spreading. You know what I mean? It's this kind of top-down, ham-handed, ham-fisted thinking that results in devastation. It's like they don't even, you know what I mean? Like, this is why the powerful are so dangerous in this time. It's like they have to be brought to account. They violated the rights of people, and most people, like I said, 80% approval, 70% approval. It's like, it doesn't matter. This is wrong. I just thought that was a powerful image, though. I like the shadow. I like the, looking at the American flag under glass. All the closed and closing businesses. Just wonderful. But Walmart's open. Walmart's open. That's where I'm out in front of the local Walmart, and it's just loaded with cars. The parking lot is packed over at Walmart. Yes, and that indeed is. I like I like the picture we chose of me. I think it's funny because I am wearing red, white, and blue striped shirt, which is very patriotic. There's a lot of patriotic themes in this. I like to point out those little ones. So long ago, when I was just a lad, my grandmother showed to me. That is indeed my grandmother. That's outside of her house in Elmhurst, the place where I wasn't born in the house, but that's where I was raised till I was about 4 years old. Right after my 4th birthday, we moved away to the house in Schaumburg where I grew up. But I returned there very often and stayed there. My grandfather, by the way, the guitar you see me playing here is my grandfather's 1947 Martin 0021. And auditorium-style guitar, very family, it's been in the family since my grandfather, so it's almost 70 years. Or no, it's over 40, 47, it's over 70. It's going to be 75 years old in a couple of years here, I believe. I just did quick math in my head. So it's 73 years currently. 73-year-old guitar. Anyways, so that was her husband who wrote the guitar, Sam Strangini, my grandfather. But it's my grandmother's family that this is about. Through my grandmother, I traced my ancestry in America back to the 400 years, essentially, back to the 1600s. Not a full 400 years, but I mean it goes way back, way back. People talk about Native Americans. They use that term to mean the people who were here before the settlers came. But honestly, after 400 years, I have no place to call home other than this land. I'm a Native American too. I mean, I feel about, and I think that, on a certain level, despite the difficulties our ancestors had, I think that the ideals brought about in terms of individual freedom are things that I think the reason why, like, the American Indians, the Native Americans are such sympathetic characters is because there was something very free. And there's also something very chaotic about their different tribes and stuff. And they fought each other and stuff like that. But, everyone loves that idea of the great open plains or the wild forests that America was sort of filled with. I mean, there were people here, but they were living like a Stone Age existence. One that had not been, down in South America, there were civilizations that were more powerful, more centralized. But more decentralized civilizations, small tribes, I mean, and I don't know. There's something about this land, I think, that draws one towards freedom. I don't know. Anyways, so my grandmother indeed showed me this Bible, the canteen, and there it is. Inside, you can see the inscription: New York Bible Study, 1862. He enlisted. Let me see. Let's just watch the information here. That's the genuine inside of it. I love this shot. It's so beautiful, like the lighting and everything. I remember when I first saw my son's work edited together here, this scene, I was just blown away at just like the beauty of it, the simplicity of the scene. I don't know why he started in ink, but then he penciled it in. Maybe he penciled it in first and meant to ink it in entirely. William A. Barnhart, 1862. He was 19. I went on Ancestry.com and I actually tracked him down through Civil War records and profiles. His sister, my grandmother's grandmother, Sarah Barnhart, her middle name was Mary and went by that as a child. She went by the name of Mary. And her mother, Mary Eulers, married, I think it was John Barnhart. I forgot the name. I had it in my... I looked it up. When I looked it up, I knew it all. I spent a whole day just looking for this. Asian enlistment 18, enlisted in September of 1861 in Walcott, New York. Walcott is a tiny little town up near Lake Ontario, right on the off the lake there. And that makes sense because my family comes from my grandmother's grandfather went by the name of Came, C-A-M-E, and they were from Maine. And it was in the next generation, my great-grandfathers, that they migrated out to Iowa. So they were East Coast, from way back, especially the Cames, they go way back. I mean, my first ancestor, I forgot the date, but it was in the very early... the very early days of the American founding, and I gotta look up, I have a family tree somewhere where it traces that back. But the Barnhart side is not explored as often, obviously, because it's a matrilineal thing. But this was her brother, my grandmother's grandmother, her brother. That made him the grand uncle of my grandmother. It's like, so the woman... so his sister would be my great grandmother on my grandmother's side. Yeah. Let's make that right. My great. Yeah, that's right. Great on my grandmother's side. Her brother was enlisted at 18. And you can see, was wounded, yes. Survived the war, no. And we have the Bible. The text is from the stuff I found on the web, but I added these images here, obviously, because they're it's that like they didn't know I had this, or this is not part of a website. But I put it all together just because to make it a connection. Because I made the connection. I found the man. The young man, but really no more than a boy. And it said, in fact, there it says they mustered out 31st of May, 1863, at Port Hudson, Louisiana. So they went out to battle, and he died sometime after that from his wounds. Likely, he was wounded. And they returned the Bible. His effects were returned to his family, including this blood-stained Bible, which was passed down to me. My granduncle carried to war, and his blood on... You got a nice view of the Union Dairy over there, a little ice cream shop here in downtown Freeport. And I'm standing in front of I'm sitting actually in front of the statue of Stephen A. Douglas, and next to him there'll be, you don't see it here now, Lincoln is there. There's another empty storefront. Yeah. So the line about like this is, like I said, this is not precisely what she said, of course, because I can't remember exactly what she said. But I remember her talking about showing me the Bible, showing me the blood, and it was he fought in the Civil War. Like I said, it's not my direct ancestor. It is my great-great-grandmother's brother. So, I mean, he'd be like my triple granduncle. And he enlisted and fought and died. And he died childless. He had no descendants. But he left me his blood on this Bible. And so I feel I bear a responsibility. And we can never repay the debt of the fallen heroes. Well, how about we try a little bit? How about we try just a little bit? And there's Lincoln. Now, this picture, this is a real interesting image here. Again, behind the glass, the closed store. It's very symbolic, and everything is seen in a reflection, and everything. The world is all dim in this reflection. I like that. There's an art gallery downtown Freeport, and you got Lincoln's face in the art gallery. I didn't choose this as far as this art gallery decided to put that there. I don't know if they'd even agree. I don't care. It's the face they put closed. Little art gallery in downtown Freeport. How many customers do you suppose they had on a daily basis? You suppose they're packing it in, spreading the coronavirus? That this person couldn't have been entrusted with the responsibility of keeping his store clean and keeping his customers safe? Could not be entrusted. Could not be entrusted to govern himself. Could not be entrusted with the responsibility of a citizen. So he got shut down. Who knows if this gallery will ever open again? Man, hopefully they can afford it. Real estate is pretty cheap in Freeport. I don't know. Art gallery is already, God only knows how that works. I don't know. Doesn't matter if they come back or not. There are businesses that are not coming back, and this is symbology. We have Lincoln, the guy who led us off to the Civil War. People will argue about the Civil War, right? Serious images. Now, a lot of people would say the Civil War wasn't fought over slavery. And I said they fought due to slavery for a reason. And obviously, that's the war in which my uncle, let's just call him my uncle, even though he died at 20 years old. They fought due to slavery brought the war into being. Slavery is what brought the secessionist movement into being, what brought the abolitionist movement into being. They fought that war due to slavery. Maybe they weren't fighting, they didn't tell themselves, I'm fighting for slavery or I'm fighting against slavery, but they were fighting because of slavery. Slavery was the thing that made the fighting happen, ultimately. It was the root of everything. I mean, I think that I've made a lot of studying of the Civil War, and it's funny people would say anything else. It just doesn't make sense. It's like it is the root cause of the Civil War was the existence of slavery on this continent. Right? And then, nice use of the flag. We went down to there's several images of flags and stuff. I didn't go over these individual, obviously, that awful Civil War. There's somebody's foot there, skulls, people, these are people. Photographs. Civil War is always interesting because there were pictures, The question is are these essential human beings or not? The essential humanity Okay, this was we went down on Memorial Day. No, it was the cool thing is when we were shooting this, Memorial Day was preparing. So at a lot of places in this video, I don't even remember if I noticed in the other place, but there are a lot of flags out and stuff. Like here, I like in this image of the empty thing, there's also the flag over here in the corner. And like I said, the world kind of reflected in glass. There's nothing on the inside, and everything on the outside is all dim. Okay. I don't think I have anything special to say about those images. Just images of the war. Okay. The right of the state, the might of the state, the right of the man. I almost made that line. Originally it was the right of the state, the right of the man. But I don't like repeating words. I should say something funny about this song. Not funny, but something interesting. Maybe it's interesting. I don't know. Because as much as I've done a lot of scripture songs, I haven't written a serious song or poem basically in the last 35 years. When I was in junior high, I was a young author contest winner. I don't know how they went about selecting that. So making the selections for the young authors. I never even bothered. I wasn't even interested. We just had to make things, and our teachers submitted them. And I did a dark poem about death, and it got entered and was selected. I guess I don't know. I don't think I was a regional selection or something like that. I don't think I won any national prize or nothing like that. But since then, I haven't written anything. And I also reworked that same poem in high school, and it's got submitted to our literary magazine. It also caused my teacher to call my parents to make sure everything was cool, because it is very dark poetry. And since that time, though, I've never written anything like that or written a song in my life, other than I haven't written a serious song in my entire life. Everything I did ever was a derivative work. All my scripture songs were based on the scripture, and I was just putting the scripture to music. Even there's a couple of original songs that I've done, like off my first album, like the Messiah, Hallelujah, Yeshua, how much. But that was a derivative of my father's song, and it was just a reworking of his lyrics. So there was nothing really fundamentally new about it. Whereas this song sprung out of my mind fully formed on a single day, which to me was significant and made it important to me. And why I'm spending time talking about it and stuff instead of doing a Bible study, just because I want to have a commentary track on it, so I explain how I feel about all these things. The might of the right of the state. A reason I wanted to put right of the state originally was because it was states' rights versus human rights. Essentially, is the way I look at it. The state has a right, just like now. The federal government has said, "Hey, open up," and the states are saying, "No, we have the right to remain closed." As Illinois stays mostly closed, its neighbors have abolished coronavirus restrictions. Honestly, this should have ended a long time ago, and they should have just had guidelines for everyone. There's no reason that art gallery can't be open, except for just sheer executive hubris, which is, I shouldn't use that word, executive belief in their own superior intellect, ability, but woefully blind. At the same, I don't know. They don't believe in their blind belief in their own superior knowledge and ability to control things, and also in their total distrust of you. But here's the thing: we need to trust them. They don't need to trust us. We are the people. Why in the world? Like the very thought, you understand some level of this medical thing. They had the temptation to give orders, and they took it, and we let them. We cannot let them get away with this. They must be held to account. That's very bad. Very bad. It's the beginning. it is the most significant incursion on individual freedoms in the history of this country, and we mostly rolled over for it. Even when I listen to right-wing people, they're just talking about it like, well, they got to stop. On a fundamental level, I don't believe I have to wait for the governor to say it's okay to go out again. Because the orders were not lawful to begin with. You know what I mean? There should have been guidelines from the beginning. The CDC issued guidelines. We also should have been issued guidelines. Here's guidelines. Please, we can consider it your patriotic duty to follow these things, to stop the spread of the disease. Provide educational materials to let people know. But with a heavy hand, they've ordered people's lives into suspended animation. And, the economy is the beating heart of, everyone in the world sustains themselves from the world economy. And it's all interconnected. And I'm telling you, what we've done to ourselves in America will probably be all right. But there is great potential for suffering all over the world. I have no idea how it's going to turn out. But I suspect not well at all. And if that means there could be chaotic and dangerous times just ahead. And then the fundamental thing about the Civil War was there was the states' rights versus human rights. Does a man have a right to his own life? That his life should be his own, that he should live as a free man and not have his labor basically confiscated by the state. Or the state say that another man could confiscate his labor. Or his freedom confiscated by the state so that another man could live off of him. Whatever. But on some fundamental level, the idea of locking people down, I realized, they call it a lockdown. They call it a lockdown. And what is the most enduring? I mean, that's why later on there's an image of the chains. You lock slaves down into the bottom of the ship so you can transport them to the new place you want them to go. And they've locked us down. And they want to take us someplace also. Into a brave new America, which is not going to be the one you remember, or I remember, or that anyone who ever fought for her remembers. And so, these lockdowns, the language is the language of bondage. You know what I mean? It's the language of bondage. Stay at home. We order you. You are locked down. You must stay at home. I mean, I can't. In some of these places, it's so unreasonable. I'll say this. In my state, Governor Pritzker, reasonable fellow. Ham-fisted, but reasonable. I read his stay-at-home order. And I was thankful when I read it that he listed as essential activity outdoor activity. So in Illinois, we've all been able to go outside the whole time. There was no like some of these places where people are like snitching on each other for going outside. And for snitching on each other for whatever. From what I understand, like the biggest things have been like parties in Chicago and stuff they'd had to go break up. Or other things, I don't know. Anyways, there was some reasonable. I think that. Well, what I'm saying is that's reasonable, even though it's still despotic, and autocratic, and un-American, to order the American people to do things like this in response to something that really would be best served with the cooperation. With your cooperation, if we would all cooperate. But in some of the states, the lockdown orders were much more severe, and draconian, and people getting in trouble, ticketed for doing what is normally just survival. And they don't trust you to take Walmart is able to stay open, and the store is more crowded than it ever has been. I used to shop late, very frequently. I'd shop late. I'd be coming home from working with my brother, or I just, for some reason, go late to the store. And I was routinely in the store at times when there was low traffic. You know, but now the stores close early. This is Walmart's idea for some reason. Probably to maximize profit during the pandemic. Or something like that. Because I can't think of one reason why they need to close at 8:30. So to sanitize the store. There's enough time from midnight to 8 to do that. They're open 24 hours usually. They always have people on hand. So they can't accomplish that. Why 8:30? Why so early? The stores are just more packed. They can be entrusted to keep things clean in that gigantic store. I mean, if we still have cases of coronavirus cropping up, that's the first time I even mentioned it. If we still have those cases cropping up, where are they coming from? People are probably catching it at Walmart. Masks and all. You know what I mean? Where are they catching it? It's been 9 weeks. So, yeah, Los Angeles was really ridiculous. I saw them filling in like skate parks with sand and stuff so nobody could play. You know what I mean, just authoritarian, and it all becomes what it is they're punishing small businesses and the little guy, and it's all punitive, and it's all about you will obey us, and it ultimately becomes about their authority. So if it's going to be about their authority, it needs to be, we need to have been defying this back a bit. And it's like, but there's still plenty of room for defiance, I'm telling you right now. There's still plenty of room. Plenty of time for it. Because like, I think, it's time, because there's something I've been noticing. And we're going to talk about in a minute about the masks and stuff. Something to think about. I already went a whole hour, wow. Oh, yes. And this, there's a certain symbology here of like, I was trying to exalt heterosexual marriage. This is what this is all about. A man and a woman surrounded by my kids, my brother and my father also, their extended family also. But I had this vision of, the children all clapping around as like an approval because this is the thing that birthed them. You know what I mean? This relationship between a man and a woman brought all of them into being. And it brought all of us into being. You know what I mean? Just as our forefathers, their fight brought this nation into being and the rights and responsibilities we have as a result of that. So this is meant to be, the circle around us is meant to be sort of like lifting up and exalting and the heterosexual marriage with the man. Obviously, there's supposed to be a powerful image of that. And also on my wife, and the dancing together is important to me too, because it's something about humanity. The ability to dance with another human. We synchronize our movements. We move at the same time and we dance together. You know what I mean? And life is like a dance. It is like something, there's sometimes this sort of delicate cooperation that goes between people. And if it's done elegantly, it's beautiful, it's voluntary. And it brings about happiness. And it's right. But we don't trust that. This is, this image of a man at the center of his family with his wife looking on, smiling and approving is something that they've tried to make into an image of fear. Nothing is more frightening than a powerful man, individual with masculine features, who's willing to stand up for his right. They've tried to demonize some of the most wholesome and good things that a man could do, such as take charge of his family, be in charge of his family, to step up and be a man in his family, to be the leader. And to be the leader is to be the servant. The king is servant of all. So I said, as my family's head, I am also They're the servant of all. I serve all of them. They're all my responsibility. Nobody, it's not like they all just wait on me hand and foot. But my wife is a very service-minded person, and and does bring me things to eat and stuff. Oh, God forbid. She does domestic duties. Yes, that and more. So this is meant to be, the whole clapping thing also is psychologically in the song. It's meant to reinforce like agreement. The clapping, when you hear a bunch of people clapping, you have this desire to join in. And that's the point of the song, is to make people join in this reaffirmation of American wholesome family life and of liberty and of the fight for liberty. I like that shot of the canteen. That line, do you know what I mean? I got a bloodstained Bible and an old because I feel like on some fundamental level, if you don't see it, if you don't if I haven't said it, I mean, like, you should immediately understand like what I'm talking about. My grandmother showed me this bloodstained Bible, a young man who lost his life, not exactly defending this country, trying to preserve the union of the republic that safeguards the rights of men, and to include in that, and because that the war came about because that there was slavery, and such things cannot coexist. You can't have the idea of free men, self-governing, and then also have slavery in the midst of it. It's just too much of a contradiction. Of course it resulted in a civil war. And the same thing right now, we cannot have that idea of freedom and democracy and self-government when our leaders do not believe in it, fundamentally do not believe in self-government. They do not believe we can be entrusted to govern ourselves. So how can we be entrusted to vote? How can we be entrusted to choose them? Maybe we can't. Maybe we just can't be trusted anymore. Maybe they can't be trusted. We can't be. But the whole thing, in that case, the whole thing falls apart. And we're in chaos ensues. So we have to get our heads in the right space again, or we are in serious trouble. Nice image. I like the shadow and the closed, and this place was closed. This is the will return. This is the will return at what it just set at the default setting. They weren't coming back anytime soon. And at the time we were videotaping this was like at 3 p.m. It's like closed. Will return. Yeah, God help you if you got yeah. By all means, return. The images here are actually overlapping images from the protests in Springfield, which I participated in. I went down to Springfield, Illinois, 3.5 hours from my home to participate in some protests at the Capitol, etc. For the right for a man to live by his hands. That's, I think, the fundamental point of this is telling someone that their work is not essential. It's like it's the work by which they sustain their life. And same thing with the economy. It is essential. It is the thing by which we all live our lives. And to take that lightly is ridiculous. And not only that, it violates the fundamental freedoms of men. When you could accomplish the same safety goals by just appealing to their public spirit. And if you cannot reach those safety goals by appealing to the public spirit, then the safety is not worth it. I mean, the safety they seek is not worth it if we cannot get to the same end by appealing to the public spirit of men in this country. And otherwise, because otherwise we're lost. We're completely lost. And by the way, if this is a message to my family. If you guys need to come down and hang out downstairs, that's fine. I just need the office until I'm done with this commentary. It may take more than an hour, obviously. So everyone is welcome to go down in the kitchen and the living room and even make noise. So it's quite all right. Closing sale. Yes, there were many such things seen downtown. Yeah, men will bleed. Originally I had I will bleed, but I like the idea of men will bleed because I wanted to express it more broadly. It's not just me. For rights for a man to live by his hands. Men will bleed for that. Men will die for that. They will give up their lives. In fact, I have the proof, the bloodstained Bible. It's funny, I realized I should have had the lyrics up here the whole time so I could like go through that. But if it's not obvious, I've been repeating what I say. The rights of a man to live by his hands. And if you watch the video, which is linked in the description on my other channel, you can see the lyrics are posted in the comments. It's a pinned comment at the top. Men will bleeding. And that's my great grandmother, Sarah Bernhardt. My grandmother had an alternative spelling because its name is often spelled different ways. But I traced it genealogically, so I know that who she is and where they were and all that stuff. Frank came, my great grandfather, Sarah Bernhardt. And again, when it's your grandmother's maiden name, I think that's why my grandmother was not sure. But the thing I go on is the way it's spelled in the back of the Bible, which is B. Barnhart, which is the way it was spelled in the Civil War records. So, and this picture hung in my grandmother's house when I was growing up, and she drew the little ornamentations around it, and she made this. It hangs in my father's house now, but it's funny. I had my son. I went over to my dad's house and held the picture, and we photographed it over this table, which had a stars and stripes. It had like a stars and stripes themed tablecloth on it, which also really symbolically played very well into this. It's just beautiful, and the camera work is really amazing. I like the way my hands look like they were carved out of stone. I think it's hilarious. One thing I'd been gardening recently at that time is my hands were kind of, they getting extra rough from that kind of stuff. Yeah, and the blood on the Bible flows in me, because the idea is that, hey, this is my kinsman. He's my family member. His sister gave birth to my great-grandfather, who sired my grandmother, who gave birth to my father, who sired me. It's actually a mother-son thing. Because it literally goes from Sarah to Harry to Marjorie, my grandmother, to Mike, my father, to me. And Sarah, of course, and Sarah Barnhart, her brother, William A., who died, it was her older brother by a couple of years. And he came back, and, her mother, is mother to her aunt, and that's where it's connected. And so I'm connected. He shed his blood, and I look at that, and I'm like, that's got things in there that I also received. It's like I am descended from his sister. I am child of his mother. His mother is my great-great-great-grandmother. And that may not seem like a big connection, but it's like I have my connections. I can't trace all my family everywhere. On the Italian side, I can go back to my great-grandfather, and that's it. Dead end. I haven't really looked into it. But not a lot of record. There probably is a record. So the one thing I'm just not sure of, if I need to look at whatever. Anyways, so there's a picture hung in my grandmother's house. I always remember seeing that. She'd tell me about it. Her grandmother and grandfather. I like to use this slightly, but that's not exactly profane, right? There's kind of a swearing going on there. I will be damned. It's actually cursing. That's technically cursing. I am invoking a curse. If I forget, then I shall be damned. It's a curse. People talk about cursing and swearing. I say I almost never curse, but I did curse there, didn't I? I don't curse other people. But it is a sort of it is a thing. You lay a curse on yourself. If this is true, then let these bad things happen to me, right? And damn just means condemned. And if I forget the sacrifice made, and if I don't make some sort of effort to repay that which can't be repaid, then I ought to be damned by all right. Because I'm a damnable coward, if that's the case. And I think we are in a nation full of damnable cowards right now. They ought to be damned for forgetting. People's young men, boys. The first line starts out long ago. When it was a long time ago, that picture was like, I was like 9 or 10. So it was like almost 40 years ago. And I said, just about now. It's not meant to be right now. It's just about now. And I made it that way because I have a lass and 7 lads. My son is obviously not exactly a lad. My 2 oldest are over 21. My 3rd oldest here is 18. And so, my 4th is 16. So they're all, not at the same, but, in this stage in my life, 5 years ago, 5 years ago, we had just had our, let me do the math. I don't want to sell anyone short. Yeah. My oldest was 18. Right now, we were at this moment, 5 years ago, my oldest was 18. My youngest was an infant. You know what I mean? And so that's like the stage of life I'm at, where I have all these young people around me that I am father to. They carry my blood. They're my descendants. This is my legacy. You know what I mean? In fact, they're all watching me. The original line was, they are my legacy. But I had the word legacy later. I liked it better when I talked about the Bloodstained Bible legacy, and I do not like to repeat words in poetry if I can all avoid it. In fact, the part where it says, my grandmother showed to me an old canteen and a bloodstained Bible, and then there's this pause. Originally I had, and she said to me, but I didn't really want to say to me twice in a row like that because it just offends me artistically. I want to make it, and I think the elimination of that was good. But they're all watching me. Yeah, they're watching me. They that's what the next line. They are, oh, look at it. They're watching me. I'm dancing around with a gun. Yes. And that was one of the last ideas too. It was sort of the spur of the moment. Do I do that? Do I dance around with the gun? What's that mean? Well, I'll tell you what. It means we can never repay the debt of the fallen heroes. The only way you can repay the debt of the fallen hero is to become a fallen hero. And ultimately, that is the debt I feel like this young man who never had a family or nothing, he gave up his life in God only knows what he was thinking, but it was because the nation had given rights to some men and denied them to others. And the conflict that arose out of that brought about the Civil War. And they talk about Civil War today, and in some respects, I can't see how it's not inevitable. If they keep pushing in an authoritarian way and trying to take away our rights. Like I said, you get all 70% of you vote against me. At that point, when you come to put me in chains, you're going to, you know what I mean? Like when they come to put me in chains, or to put my children in chains, I have to say that I have the blood of heroes on me. And I can't cowardly sit back and allow that to happen. Now, this is no threat or anything to anybody. I'm not a threat. I'm being threatened. You know what I mean? They're threatening our freedoms. They are not just threatening, but actually doing something to restrict them. And it is something worth fighting for. And I want to show my children it is worth fighting for. Now, right now, I'm fighting with my song. I'm fighting with my words. I'm fighting with that. And fine. But that does not mean that this is out of the picture of willingness. Push comes to shove. I don't think that's necessary. Honestly, I don't think it's any way necessary for the present time. And I hope it is never necessary, because it's not how I wanted my life to end up. I didn't want to take up arms in my own land. That's like the most unthinkable thing for me. Now, people talk about Civil War, but they haven't really thought of. I mean, I'm a student of history. The Civil War was horrific, and don't think it wouldn't be just as bad now, if not worse. It's no good. It does no good for anybody. But the thing is, I will not for the sake of their sacrifice, I will not roll over and be put in chains. I'm sorry. And no man should. No American man who's been given this gift has the fallen hero's blood on his hands as he works his way through life and freedom and enjoying his good times and enjoying his soft bed with his nice wife. Not considering the things men have suffered to bring that we could live in peace and have freedom, and that they wanted us to have freedom, and they entrusted it into us, this government, this republic, which we are to protect. I don't know what to do with this gun. It's just a shot. It's just a Sears shotgun. It isn't worth anything as far as in a battle. And it's about the symbology of power. I have power. I have the power to change things, but my first weapon is my speech. So I made the video. Interestingly, by the way, my song hasn't been approved for digital distribution yet. It's taken a long time. And I'm curious. I will definitely update on that. I keep waiting for them to say, your song is ready to, but it's not getting ready, which is strange. I thought maybe it had something to do with it has a similar title. There's another song called The Bloodstained Bible. I didn't realize it until I looked up my own song after I'd released it. But they don't have the dash. And it's a totally different, I mean, the song is so different. It's about Normandy or something. I listened to a little bit of it. I'm like, this is nothing like mine. So it'd be easy for someone to tell, like, no, it's just a different song with a very similar title. Like, extremely similar, right? But again, I don't know what else to call it because it's just a description of what the thing is. I want my kids to know, I when I'm dead, I want them to know I stood for something. Not just that I was, like, afraid and safety first and put on your helmet and and never leave the house again for fear of what might happen. Oh no. Yeah. That's just the plaque there. I say, should I leave them to the state of Illinois like property? Because like I said, what they're doing here is a form of, it is like slavery. It is akin to slavery because slavery was the appropriation of men's work. You know what I mean? They appropriated the works of certain men and took away the freedom of certain men, right? I can guarantee you our founding fathers would look at what is going on right now and see it as slavery. You guys are letting yourself be put in chains. Within this block was held the second joint debate in the senatorial contest between Abraham Lincoln and Stephen A. Douglas. And Douglas said, I am not for the dissolution of the Union under any circumstances. He was a Northern Democrat, was not in favor of the dissolution of the Union because people were talking about separating and all that stuff. And Lincoln says, this government cannot endure permanently, half slave and half free. You can't have the two minds exist within the same body politic. That it's, on one hand, freedom. It's all about freedom. And for them, it was the states' rights. Like I said, states' rights. Because there are certain powers reserved to the state. But historically, when states have gone over their authority, when they've stepped over their bounds of their authority, the federal government has enforced the Constitution as the supreme law of the land. That's why things like equal protection under the law. States are not allowed to not give people equal protection under the law. You can't have a state where you have an unjust justice system. You can't have a state where there's a king. You know what I mean? We can't. That's not allowed. They cannot deny people their fundamental rights. And that's what the war eventually came to be about, is the fundamental rights of a human being outweigh the rights of any state of independent government. And that no majority may vote or otherwise consent to deprive one group of people of their fundamental rights. Even they think they're not essential. Well, then you don't have to shop there. You know what I mean? If you think the furniture store in downtown Freeport is not essential business, then don't shop there. God knows before the closing, I never shopped there. But if it had been open, I would have solicited them. I don't know. I don't need any furniture right now, but I mean, it's like, or the art gallery. It's like, what is it, $5 to come in and look around? I don't know. Was it free? I don't know. But do I want my legacy to be I left my children less free than my forefathers left me? Is that what I want to be? They are less free than I was. They are the property of the state of Illinois to be commanded to do whatever the state of Illinois pleases. The state of Illinois like property. That's my daughter and I dancing. You know, the idea that, and we included the governor's image. I was a little hesitant because there was like the gun image and the, you know, it's not meant as any threat towards any person. It's not that at all. It's just saying this is what I feel about standing up for our rights. Who's the little man? Who is this guy? Some man can just tell me? No one man has the power to just deprive you of your right. I mean, if they take the power to themselves, he's a tyrant. And the fact that they think they can just do this is astounding to me. Like I said, compared to some of the ones, he's quite reasonable. Our governor. Quite reasonable. But still, despotic. It's like you can't just, it's like you think it's almost more insidious. Like in the states where they were really and deny me to the labor of my own hand wickedly. All right. I'm getting away from it. Well, the wrestling, nice face, Paul. Oh, yes. But some of the other governors I show, like Whitmer, Newsom, or Cuomo, much more heavy-handed in their response than Pritzker. He acted early and more thoughtfully. But it being more reasonable makes it more insidious. Meaning the things he's commanded are more reasonable. Less like, hey, you can't go out of your house. Essential activity included literally outdoor activity, just getting outside and having activity outside, like to go walking or something like that, or running outside, was listed. I don't know who's advising him, but they obviously are intelligent enough to understand that, like, yes, people need to get outside. And it's like part of why people get sick in the wintertime is being cooped up. And it's good to get out for your health. It also, if you've got viruses on your skin, being exposed to the sun can also kill them. If you picked up something, it's obviously not a really likely way to get rid of something. But anyways, as everyone knows, sickness is mostly a wintertime affair. For the most part, if I get sick during the year, it's usually in the wintertime. That's especially my case because of wrestling, which leads into the next part. Anyways, it's more insidious when it's reasonable because you are more likely to give in. It's not as obvious your rights are being trampled. They're being gently trampled. See what I'm saying? J.B. Pritzker gently trampled on our rights, whereas in California they tended to stomp on them a bit more. All the California conservatives, though, just taking it, but they're not. Nobody's calling for some civil disobedience. That's what I'm calling for, though. I am. I'll talk in a minute. Okay. And here we have, I myself, I'm like, how about in the midst of the dancing, him and I will go in and we'll kind of start wrestling with each other. We'll just go on our feet like we're jockeying for position. Because I teach my sons how to fight. I teach my sons how to wrestle. Because I think a man ought to be able to handle himself physically. He ought to be physically formidable and not be weak and vulnerable. It's not befitting a man. Weakness does not befit a man. It doesn't. I have weaknesses already. I have enough weaknesses. Last thing I need to do is, it's like I would say about a lot of things, like Jesus when he was being tempted to be thrown off the temple. There's things I shouldn't throw myself off the temple because God isn't going to protect me from being a fool. And so I should not tempt him in that way. If I really believe I'm his servant, I should serve him and not tempt him like saying, am I really your servant? Let's see. Throw myself off the building. So also when it comes to life, if I live a long time, I want to be healthy during that time. That's why I work out. I'm not in the greatest shape, obviously, from the video, but it's because it's a lot of hard work at my age, and I still, I have scheduling difficulties and all kinds of excuses, but it's like, at least I know I need to do it because I don't think God is going to protect me from my own excesses. I have to, if I'm going to live a long time and I want to be healthy in that time, I have to work at it. Good health doesn't come just by sitting on a couch or at my desk. I sit on a couch once a week. Or maybe twice a week, I guess. Officially. Rarely I ever do get to sit on the couch. I'm here at my desk. I'm out working. I teach them to fight and to struggle, and young men ought to be able to do that. The young man who shed his blood, William Barnhart, on that Bible that I possess, he went out to fight for things he believed in. Should not just fight for sport, but also for the purpose of sport is to practice fighting for the sake of knowing how to fight, knowing how to handle yourself. It teaches many good lessons also, not just the idea of being able to fight, but how to handle yourself under pressure, how to deal with defeat, how to deal with someone stronger than you are. There are a lot of good lessons in that. And I encourage, my wife has always been very supportive also of the boys wrestling. And that's another thing also, that wrestling is pretty much, according to my governor, never going to happen again until they get a vaccine. And I think it's interesting. I would almost like to ask my fellow coaches, because I coach wrestling, I get certified every year. How do you feel about no wrestling until there's a vaccine? I say we sign a waiver and we just go on with things. I don't know. Because honestly, I think I already caught it at a tournament in March. Some of the things, I think I had the coronavirus. I think I had it the first week of March. I think by the time the lockdown came, I was already over it. I haven't talked about it extensively, but I had all the symptoms and it was bad. But it was, why did I change the size of that suddenly? It's going to fit. Okay, there we go. That's fine. So, yeah, I know it's going to be a bad thing, but it's like on some level, we're going to just stop living. I think that we could take some precautions, and it's going to be hard. I think people who are frightened ought to stay home. But I don't know. Is this how we're prepared to live now? Don't come into contact with anybody? That's what we're going to do for the sake of safety? Is this what our forefathers died for? For us to hide in our holes? So I use that. There's no way you will lock me down. Because like I said, lockdown, chains, slavery, those ideas I think are embedded in what we are going through right now. They're going to lock you down. Lock it down. There were so many calls for locking it down because they view the people as the property of the state. But the state is the property of the people. The state exists for our sake, not the other way around. I like this part. Nothing makes me happier than dancing with my wife. Okay. And obviously this is... we had an idea of the reason this image is in here is because of Governor Whitmer. But obviously, the way it came in, right after, I remember my son said, where do you think I should put this? And then he showed me the part about we were dancing, really happy there with my wife. And we really kind of synchronized there. There's my brother in the background. I really like that part. And there's something, of course, overtly very sexual about the dance. Not explicitly so, but there's something about, like, I dance with my daughter. Like, she ought to know that when she looks for a mate, he should be someone who can dance well. And a person of, and I mean that in a very metaphorical sense. And a father's job is to show a daughter what doing dancing well means. Meaning how a man ought to behave in this life. How a man ought to be with a woman. Like when I dance with my wife, there's this sort of you need to have this sort of cooperation together. You know what I mean? The man needs to be strong, powerful, to lead, to be, and in some ways, every woman wants to look up to her man. This image of the seeds is because of Governor Whitmer banning seeds, banning the sale of seeds, which at the time freaked me out a little bit because I'm like, hey, what if my governor does that? That's insane. I got to plant a garden here every year. It's essential. I got to get the garden in. I mean, like, if there could be any, that's what I'm saying. Like, some of these governors made it obvious how despotic they were being. They made it obvious. This is despotism. This is tyranny. But that's how the seed packet, the idea came from that. But obviously the symbology here of me dancing with my wife, and then you see the package of cucumbers and the seeds spilling on the ground. That's obviously, we didn't intend it, but very phallic, very reproductive in the imagery, even orgasmic in the imagery. The seeds spilling out on the ground to plant new seeds in the earth for the future. Just as from, like my ancestor, my uncle, from, 3 times removed, my uncle, William A. Barnhart, he died having no issue. You know what I mean? But because he his sacrifice made this nation free, and everything that redounded from that, like my grandmother, all those people born since then have benefited from that. He died for future generations. The men could be free to do things like plant their own seeds. And so you can't buy seeds. How insane is that? You can't visit your family. How insane is that? Oh, no, you can't. No, we order you. No non-essential visits. You can tell me all about the virus and all about the danger, and then say, would you please consider it your civic duty to do these things, but in as much as it is possible. And of course, we trust the judgment of the American people. But that is not what happened. That's what should have happened. But nobody thought about this. The doctors just took over. Doctors' orders. I've been fighting against doctors for years. Some doctors, like in birthing situations and stuff, where they wanted to tell us what to do. They are very imperious sometimes. Some doctors. I've had some doctors I love, absolutely love. Good men. Right? But some of them are very imperious. What does that mean? Like, we have the word imperial. Very commanding. Very that kind of nature. I'm the boss. They're used to people doing what they say. And so that has to be, you have to take a strong hand sometimes when dealing with, just as far as you have to be willing to stand up for things. And our politicians should have stood up for the fundamental rights of men to be free and liberty. And in the fact that we have a representative democracy, so people, it is implicit in that idea that we have to be trustworthy enough to carry out what's best for the nation. Otherwise, we ought to just suspend voting. Why are we giving people vote on who's the leader's going to be if we can't even entrust them with their own safety? The 3 governors there. I know there's a 4th one. Pritzker doesn't even usually get mentioned with the Hall of Shame as far as the worst governors. Newsom. Newsom, Whitmer, and Cuomo are there. I put them all in masks. As I've been going around town with the masking thing, I have like you can see it coming up. well, here, let me just talk about this. Masks and Faces, leaders of the Democratic Party. These are two old political cartoons I came up with. Now, this was actually a Southern thing, like, Lincoln is the devil was what it was trying to say. And but it was something else also about it, like the sort of like the face behind the mask and this people wearing masks all the time now thing. It was something that struck me, and if you've made it this far in the study, congratulations, because this is where I'm going to start talking about some of the darker aspects of this. Wearing a mask. As I line up outside the store, everyone's got to put their mask on to go inside. And it doesn't matter if the inside people aren't wearing them right or nothing, but you got to put them on. Walmart is like, they line you up outside, do not let you in. You cannot be a customer there without your mask. And I do not think that this is the mark of the beast by any means. Let me make that clear. But the prophecies exist for a purpose, and this is the sort of thing that the mark of the beast is. The mark of the beast is this sort of thing. You cannot buy or sell except you have the mark. Except you're wearing the mask. A mark, a mask, they're similar things. Something upon your face that signifies your obedience. Something on your face that signifies your willingness to subject yourself to the power. And if you want to know what it's like to not wear the mark, the social pressures, go out without a mask, insist on not wearing it. Don't be, here's the thing. Like I said, I'm going to go to Walmart. I'm not going to try and make a big deal about it. I'm not going to try to videotape myself or any nonsense like that. I'm just going to go and say, when they ask me, do you have a mask? I'll say, it's okay. I cannot wear a mask. And then I will walk in the store. And I do not think they will question it, but I need to practice that. I feel a strong conviction. To me, it's a religious conviction that at this point, it's not because I don't believe they work for protecting people from the disease. It's not because I think in and of itself it is such a grievous thing. It is because it is part of a package that has been constructed to deprive us of our basic civil rights. And it is the only outward sign I can wear to show my defiance everywhere I go. And so, no, I will no longer wear a mask. And if they ask, I will say, it's okay, I cannot wear a mask. And if they insist, then I suppose I do have a thought about how I will explain. It's like, this is my religious belief. I'm like, they've deprived us of our basic freedoms. And the mask wearing, while it is said to be to prevent us from the disease, right now I think it is more a sign of obedience to the state. And therefore I am conscientiously objecting to it and will not wear one for that very purpose. The mark of the beast, this is not the mark of the beast, but it is a type of mark of the beast, I think, in my opinion. So therefore, that's why it's like, for me, it's a religious conviction. I cannot wear one. It doesn't matter that my religion has no history. This is something, my religion, I don't have, they say, well, it has to be this, that. No. This is not a game. I sincerely believe this. I sincerely believe it. I don't think it is the mark of the beast, but it is like the mark of the beast, and therefore it is something I will not participate in anymore. When I first did it, I was thinking, well, before they ordered it, I remember thinking, I feel like so unconsiderate not wearing one because I think people are scared. And I think of the little old ladies and their dirty looks, like, don't you care? I could get sick and die. And I do care. But on some level, it becomes more important to me. The preservation of freedom is more important to me than my life. Because I have to leave this in trust to my children. You know what I mean? If my life had to be sacrificed, I don't want to give it up. But there are some things for which men will lay their lives down and have and shall. And yeah, and so like you say, but wearing masks, it's like, well, you know, the Revolutionary War started over taxes on tea, man. Free men don't put up with this stuff. You know what I mean? It's like, it's one thing if you say, hey, you know, make it my civic duty, meaning just appeal to my patriotism. These things could work. They don't want to appeal to your patriotism because they hate patriotism, because they hate our country, what it stands for. They love authoritarianism. They want to make us more like communist China than like the America which our forefathers sacrificed for. You know, 2 hours is about my limit. My throat is getting dry with all this talking. Let's finish up the video. There's just a few more symbols. There we go. The Statue of Liberty. I wanted to put New York symbols in there because I think I'd like to appeal to people in New York. I think they're suffering under a lot harsher lockdown than we are in Illinois. And also, William Barnhart. He shipped out of New York. Not the city, but the state. Are there any people who still love freedom in New York? I think so. I think so. And I wanted symbols of their state in my video. We have a giant statue to liberty in our country. You know what I mean? And this is sped up footage my son made when we went into the Memorial Garden the day. It was 2 days before Memorial Day. Was it the day we actually, I forget. It was like a blur. We filmed on Friday and Saturday, I think. It was just a blur. That's why I was like, when it was done and I saw it, I loved it, and I didn't even put a finger to it. I wrote the song and the music, and I went around and performed in these locations, and he did the footage and stuff, put it together. I thought it turned out great. All those people who died. And there's another empty store. I swear to uphold the law of the land. All the oaths of office are taken on the Bible. You know what I mean? All our leaders have an oath to uphold the Constitution. And I think implicit in that is the oath to uphold the basic rights on which that document, for which that was written to preserve. And that government was instituted to safeguard. The government was instituted to safeguard and protect our rights and liberties from men who would behave tyrannically and try to take them from us. And now it's happening. It's happening. They're taking our rights from us, and we stand idly by as people's lives are shattered because the government doesn't trust them. Essentially. The government doesn't think they can be safeguarded with our safety. Their liberty, what they're saying is to safeguard, to make people safe, we will take away your liberty. When our forefathers died, they thought their life was worth sacrificing to preserve liberty. How can I take an oath on well, and again, the Bible I'm thinking of in the song is obviously, I'm putting my hand metaphorically on this blood-soaked book. It's not soaked, blood, it's got a stain on it, basically. Actually, just on the cover. He covered it with a piece of paper, and his blood got on the cover. And, and that's it. But sort of like, I'm looking at this blood-stained Bible. I'm remembering what was done for the sake of liberty, for the sake of our country. And all the lives were lost. My family fought. My family's never owned slaves. We're all way up north. I mean, I don't know, I don't know, because it's like, other than my grandmother's parents, Dolan and Kame, other than that family, the entire rest of my lineage is immigrants since that time. My grandfather came over on the boat with his mother as a little boy, right, through Ellis Island. My own, and so there's my grandfather. That's half the family there on that side. that on my mother's side, my mother was an immigrant. She came here as a child also. So there we go. So that's my entire family history is just on that one side, that one connection. It goes back, we weren't slave owners, but it's like, I understand, it's like a lot of the people in the South weren't fighting for slavery. They're just fighting for their land, for their state, because like I said, why are you fighting? Because you're all down here. If someone invades your land, you think, fight. I understood. They all fought. People were fighting mostly for their whatever. Like, who can say what each man is fighting for? He thinks he's fighting for good. They thought they're fighting for hearth and home to protect those things. But the reason they ended up fighting was because there'd been slaves. And so a great moral evil had been done in the land. And so then there was a great price of blood. I'm saying, do not let that be in vain. My soul and the blood. I swear on my soul and all that. But because it's like, and this is also meant to be, this part is meant to be not necessarily like I'm sort of saying it for myself, but also it's an appeal to the oaths of office of officers of the law, of politicians. You all take oaths to uphold the Constitution, to protect the laws, the law of the land. And it's like, and you ought to be mindful of that. And the blood should call to you, and you should have this explosive reaction when you think about. They swore this oath. So, and then this is the conclusion. All right. Obviously, they changed the shirts. It's slightly political there, but it's red is the color of blood. It is also the color of revolution. Generally speaking, like the Republican Party being labeled as red is actually a very odd thing symbolically, because that would not usually be the association of the Conservative Party. Conservatism would be much more symbolically, the color would be blue. And the way blue and red got mixed with the Democrats and the Republicans is kind of a interesting story, because it was, it's arbitrary. Like, how did that come to be? Why are the Republicans red? Why are there red states and blue states? And I've looked into that. I'm not going to try to explain it here. But red is often the color of revolution, blood, of alert, of like a red alert or a red flag. I'll be waving a red flag, and I'm just going to talk about red in this context. I'll be waving a red flag. I'll be carrying a red flag. And, there's things, and that has multiple symbolic meanings that overlap each other. The red flag is symbolic, obviously, of some sort of alert. Like when something sends up a red flag, it's like, whoa, pay attention to this, right? Pay attention to this. They even have red flag laws when they think someone's actually a danger. If there are, and I don't mean to red flag, I sort of like wave that red flag. And I know that there's dual meanings to people who are afraid of strong masculinity and of American values. I am a red flag because they think I'm somehow a danger. But I am a safe guardian of liberty. I'm throwing up the red flag. To me, it means this. Hey, look at something really bad's going on here, guys. They should be sending out red flags. They're depriving us of our basic rights. I'm waving the red flag saying, like, red alert, take a look. I'm out in the middle of nowhere waving a red flag. Something's gone horribly wrong. And we cannot let this just happen. I mean, we can. We want to just let it happen. Part of me wants to just fold my hands and go back to being a coward. Not that I was a coward per se, but I'm saying just go back. Go back to living my life. Seeking my own good, seeking my economic prosperity. I can still prosper in these difficult times. I'll find a way. Half my business is gone. Well, there were times when I lost all my business, so it's not the first time I would have encountered something like that. I'm not in the least bit worried. Because I'm more worried about this than I am about my economic security. I'm more worried about this than I'm worried about getting sick from the pandemic or my father getting sick or any other thing. It worries me more because it's about the future of our nation. It's about the future of my children and my children's children. Whose granduncle am I that someone will look back and see what I did when they began to, it started before this, but this is like red alert. I'm not going to just let the land that I've been entrusted with, the blood was shed to make me free, fall into tyrants' hands. I am a king here along with you. You know what I mean? I'm saying we've been entrusted with the government of our land, we the people. I didn't choose this. You know what I mean? I didn't want this. I didn't ask for it. The responsibility was laid upon me, upon all of us who are heirs of it, upon every citizen of this nation. You've been burdened with the responsibility to take care of yourself, to govern yourself, and to safeguard the liberties which have been given to you for future generations. If you sit back and let that happen, and let the tyrants take it over, shame on you. Shame on you. Obviously, that's something hopeful there. I want Illinois. There is hell to pay. This indicates there's dual meanings here. Obviously, it's like I'm sort of very. My brother made this little graphic. It's signaling some sort of takeover, right? But it also is the color of revolution, red. Also the color of blood. There are a lot of ways things can happen. I'm just saying, if you think I'm the only one who feels like this, you're out of your mind. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not the only one who feels like it. I don't care if it's only 20% of the people that if 20% of the people will refuse to have their rights taken away from them, well, I'm sure we can pretty well see to it that that doesn't happen. If we all stand. It doesn't have to happen. And and here's the thing, is that I am not a Republican. I'm not officially any party at all. I lean kind of libertarian, but I also have some very liberal ideas also that I've often said I like living in a country where we take care of our poorest. And I understand that there's an economic trade-off when you have welfare and stuff like that, and that it's not necessarily good for people, but it's also not necessarily good to have people. If you have a total laissez-faire system, it will do the most good for the most people, probably. But there will also be outliers, extremes at the bottom. And I'm not worried about extremes of wealth at the top. That's fine. I'm worried about the extremes of poverty at the bottom. You know what I mean? I think there's a certain baseline we want to avoid happening. And if it creates some dependency, that's a price I'm willing to pay. You know, so I say, well, that doesn't fit in well with my idea of liberty. And I understand. Like I said, I'm not 100% red in the Republican camp myself. All right. But I think in this time, you know, and again, there's plenty on that side who are authoritarians. But the problem is the entire other side, the entire Democratic side, has been given over, as far as I can tell, to pure authoritarianism. You know what I mean? To them, democracy means ruling the people, not the people rule. The kratos, Greek, is power. Demokratos, demo, power. The top power of the demography, the people. Kratos, power. But they think it's power over the people. They want the people to give them the power so they can use the power to control and to command and to live out their vision of what the future could be, which is not a pretty picture, if you ask me. Marching with the flag. This is such an interesting image. Red flag marching off in the distance. And sort of like saying, where is he going? Where is he coming from? This is where I live, by the way. This is my view out the back. And I don't know. I like the way the wide-angle lens really it almost captures the feeling, the vast feeling you get when you're really there. Though it's not, you know, there's beautiful places with mountains and stuff, and I live on the gently rolling hills of northwest Illinois, and this is my land. All right. That was kind of, the wind was blowing. My son, I could see their thought process when they put this together, which is funny. The thoughtful face in the wind. Time's coming soon. There's a, I don't want to look at this picture. All right, there we go. But the idea of, just about now, time's coming soon, a long time ago. There's three. There's the past, the present, and the future in this song, in the three verses. And the future, what is the future going to be shaped like? Here's this. This is from a news broadcast. Beloved church hold in-person service. Comes daily after, I heard about this, and so I attended with my wife. I don't regularly go to church, as you know. But as long as they're making it illegal, I made an exception. And as this is going on, I'm thinking more and more, I want to do things that are not according to orders. I've been ordered to wear a face mask. I will not wear a face mask. I have a conviction that I should not. It has nothing to do with health. I know it's protecting people. But it's like I'm protecting and safeguarding liberty. And to me, it's like, I don't have to pick up a gun. I do, but like that gun is a signifying the willingness to fight. First there's the gun, then I'm wrestling with my son. And then here, this is the image of the way I'd prefer to start taking this on is civil disobedience. Go to church. Find a church that's having a service that's not legal and go. And gatherings of no more than 10, I'm afraid not. And I thought that was a funny way, like, yes, that was me going in. It was just a funny thought. I was like, because they never show anything except my back in that news report, because they had the camera set up out there. I didn't actually talk to any reporters or anything. We just came and went quietly. But I went because I wanted to support what was being done. It was one of the best feelings I ever had, was going to that church service that we weren't allowed to have. I'm not a big fan of going to church, and it was just like I remember it. Just going to church. It was singing and a little lecturing and goodbye. Didn't get much time to talk to nobody. Nobody talked to me. I'm not a very big social person. I have trouble with it. I mean, I will engage with people. I'm just not good at the breaking the ice stuff. All right. Join me, brothers. How much does it really cost so much to do a little bit of civil disobedience here? I mean, I'm willing to, we're willing to die, add our blood. Well, is there some other way we can serve in the meantime? I was saying, eventually, if they keep this authoritarian thing, it will lead to war in this country. I don't think the American people are so whipped that they can't recognize when they're being put out of their rights. Or maybe we are. Maybe I am just totally, God, I don't want to think I have to fight this fight and it's like, and nobody's going along with it. Really? Y'all just going to let them run you over? I mean, I live in a blue state, but still, I don't know. Like I say in our state, it was 70% of people approve of his plan, of the job he's doing. I don't. You approve of a governor taking your rights? 70% of the people ought to be ashamed of their opinions. They ought to be ashamed of their opinions. They give up their rights for safety. And the safety that barely even, it's like we could have still had safety and our rights. You know what I mean? We could have had safety. It would have been safer. Nope, it would have been, because people are spread out better. People don't need to be cooped up. The little art gallery could still stay open. No reason why his 2 or 3 customers a day can't be spaced out or whatever. He can work out whatever he wants to run his business safely. I trust him, her, whoever. I trust that barber to do whatever necessary, get a face shield or not. If they want to take the risk, that's their right as free men to take the risk. So, but we all take a risk in living. Why do you think our speed limits are not set at 30? Why not have a nationwide speed limit of 30 miles an hour? It would save lives. But don't you care about saving lives? Why are you driving around at 55? You know, you can have a fatal accident at 55. Even at 30, it can be fatal. But it's more... Why don't I make it 20 or 15, 10? Why don't we put governors on all the cars so they can't go faster than 10 miles an hour? That way, it'd be very hard for anyone to get killed in an auto accident. You have to be sleeping and they just roll over you. It would save lives. Why don't we do that? I mean, these are preventable deaths. We just all slow down. You know? Why not? Why don't we do that? It's because we calculate risk every day. We are entrusted with our own lives to take our lives in our hands, and we take risks. You don't have to drive 55. You know, you could drive slower. You could drive 10 if you want, I think. Only on the interstate highways do they have minimums. As far as I know, there's no minimum out of my yard. I could drive here 10 all the time. And just let them pass. That's that protest again, Capitol. It's amazing to me how small it looks here, man, because when I was there, it looks huge. It just loomed. It loomed. And and they were giving, and here's a statue of Lincoln here. He was just like kind of looking down. It looked depressing. He was looking down on us. After the freedom we fought for, they fought for some sort of freedom for somebody, whether they knew it or not. They died for it. And we're going to just let ourselves be in chains again. Lock us down. We deserve it. We want it. Make our band strong. Is that where we've come to? Legacy. So take heed now, before it's too late, and so that there shall never be. Yeah, before it's too late. I don't want it to ever be. I don't want to have to take up the bloodstained Bible in actual battle. You know? I love that little scene there. Red flag. You know, like my enemies, and then that final thing, that was an idea. And it signifies the putting away of childish things and taking up manly responsibility. There you go. Like when I die, what will my contribution to my family's heritage be? What will I have left my children for them to say, this was my father's? Do I have anything so beautiful as a blood-stained Bible with my blood on it? I mean, my guitar is infused with blood, but it wasn't exactly shed for freedom or for my posterity or to make other men free or for any other purpose that I could say other than, you know, because I was zealously playing my music for God. Nice. Nice to zealously play music. That was my teddy bear. And putting it in there like that. I mean, it was already in there. Because it's like, but like, I thought about like, what of mine is there around? It's even, you know, so here, a comfy life. That's what I've inherited. A comfy life. Teddy bears, fullness of bread, abundance of idleness. That's what I've received. The luxury to be free. The luxury to have soft things. To live a soft life. And putting that away represents, I'm willing to live a life that isn't so soft. Even in my age, there's still growing up to be done. And I'm telling you, I don't know what's to be done exactly. I tell you what I'm going to do. My start is I will not wear a mask. I have a conviction. I will not wear it anymore. I'm saying this publicly on my channel so that to bind myself like an oath, lest I be damned. It's the first step in making war on the tyrants that try to reign over us. I will not publicly cover my face in public like some sort of criminal, a bandit, or some sort of... when I look at men wearing masks, they look inherently weak, pathetic, fearful. You know what I mean? There's something very emasculating about being masked. You know, a man praying or prophesying with his head uncovered dishonors his head, or with his head covered dishonors his head. I kind of understand what Paul was saying in that. That it's like there's something sort of not right about a man covering up. You know what I mean? It's like I'm not willing to openly show my face. I'm bowing under orders. Why am I wearing the mask? I wore the mask for my own conviction. I have always worn it as my civic duty to protect people. Even though the truth is, I already believe I had it and I'm not contagious and I don't know if I can get it again. Maybe I can. I don't know. I don't care. I'm not afraid. I don't want to spread it to people by any means. But honestly, I can keep my distance from people. I'm going to try to avoid getting anywhere near people. Staying out of aisles where they're crowded, staying away from people. Don't breathe on them. Don't talk to them. That's what I'm going to do. But I'm not going to wear a mask. It's like a mark of the beast. Because no man can buy or sell. So if they have the mark, they closed all the stores, and then you can't, the big places, you can't go in there unless you wear. It's like I don't know if it's a test, a trial run, or anything like that, but it's like that. It's the same kind of thing. That's what I'm saying. It's not the thing, but it's like the mark of the beast. It's like the same kind of social pressure. That's what I'm saying. Like, this is how this stuff happens. This is how it works. If you want to see, and one of the reasons I want to do this is because it's going to be practiced for me if I ever should live to see the end times, so I can know a little bit what it feels like not to go around without the mark of the beast on. It's the closest you'll get. I mean, you might get closer. They might try to enforce something worse, right? I mean, but like at the moment, it's as close as you can get to that kind of thing. To the centralized power, the world government that's talked about in the book of Revelation, where everything comes into one, like the Tower of Babel. And we're living in a time like the Tower of Babel. They're trying to build everything into one. They're trying to consolidate all power, and the state wants to exercise its power over you. And those in power want to use their position to exercise power. But the truth is, from the beginning, it's unenforceable. According to the laws of our land, it's not enforceable. The police won't enforce it. And they can't. I don't even know that if they passed a law that they can, they still can't. To enforce this law, you have to violate your oath of office. You have to violate the Bible you laid your hand on, the blood shed for the freedom of this country. And So, this begins my civil disobedience. I will not wear a mask. Sorry to all of you who are afraid you might get sick. Your lives, my life, is not worth giving up our freedom for a little bit of safety and comfort. Sorry. I apologize in advance. And that's the end of the video. So that is my commentary on the song The Blood-Stained Bible, which I released on Monday, which I wrote on the 20th of May, and which is which you can't download it because they have not approved its digital distribution. Maybe they never will. I hope they never will. I hope they ban it. I would love to have a song they refuse because they say it's too controversial. Okay. Thank you. I don't really, I don't honestly, I think it's going to be any day now. They're going to send me the email and say, I'm astonished. It's not, how could it's just art. Just like this video, it's art. It's an art piece. It's music. It's conveying a message. Yes, and a controversial message. Shouldn't be controversial at all. This should be like rah, rah. When I see it, I feel rah, rah. I feel like pumped up and positive about my country. Positive about what my country stands for. And positive about perhaps people who would see it. Anyways, so this stream is over. Thank you all for listening. I don't even how many views. There's 2 viewers. Okay, that's good. 2 concurrent viewers. Anyways, the video will be up on this is going up on the page. Thanks for joining me today. We will be back studying, I think, on Monday. I fully expect to go back to Psalms on Monday. We'll do a few more Psalms before we switch over to something else, which will be the book of Colossians. Do I have anything else I wanted to say? Because I know I'm going to get off this. I'm going to be like, I wished I'd said that. No, I can't think of anything off the top of my head. I've said most of what I had to say. Nice little 2-hour diatribe. Anyways, see you next time.